My name is Nina Wells. I'm 32 years old. Grew up in a family that called you sensitive when you notice the silence, ungrateful when you notice the imbalance. I live 3 hours away, work in data, keep to myself. I don't come home for the holidays anymore. Not because I'm angry, because I'm tired. The photo came through while I was rinsing out a mug. 11 people, shoulder to shoulder, in my mother's living room. Matching sweaters, fake smiles. The dog had a stocking. I wasn't in it, but I wasn't forgotten either. The caption read, "Missing someone," but not really. They tagged me. I sat on the couch with the lights off. Outside, it was snowing. Inside, it was quiet. They think silence is peace, but silence is just the thing they leave after the cutting's done. 3 years ago, I stopped showing up to Christmas. The first time, my mother called me dramatic. The second year, she told the cousins I was finding myself. By the third, no one asked. They just made sure I saw them smiling without me. I never said I wasn't coming. I just didn't answer. Apparently, that was enough to become the villain. The last time I showed up, my cousin Brianna handed out personalized mugs. One said, "Best dad ever." One said, "CEO in training." One said, "Queen of the kitchen." Mine didn't say anything. Plain white, no message, not even my name. She handed it to me and said, "Didn't know what to put for you." I still have it. It sits in my cupboard, behind the others. I never use it, but I've never thrown it away. In my family, if you're quiet, they think you're judging. If you speak up, they say you're making it about you. There's no version of you they will accept, only versions they can perform around. 2 days after Christmas, I got a voicemail from my Aunt Susan. She called me sweetheart. She only does that when she's lying. She said the family was just wrapping up some things from Grandpa's estate. Said they were finalizing the land paperwork. Mentioned a lawyer. Nothing serious, just routine. Then she said they just needed my signature to make everything easier. No rush, just a formality. I didn't answer, not because I didn't understand, because I understood exactly. What Susan didn't know, what none of them knew, is that Grandpa Franklin called me 6 weeks before he died. It wasn't a long call, just enough for him to say what mattered. He said, "They'll try to cut you out, Nina." Not with anger, with politeness. I didn't say anything. He continued, "You were the only one who visited without needing something." I made sure that mattered. I asked what he meant. He said, "You'll know when it's time." Then he hung up. It didn't mean anything then. Until I got a message from Melanie Cho. We went to college together. She was my dorm neighbor. She went into law. I went into data. She texted me one line. "Are you related to a Franklin Wells?" I called her right away. She told me she was handling a property transition for the Wells estate. Said the paperwork looked rushed. Too many assumptions. Too few required names. I asked if my name showed up at all. She said no, not on the forms the family submitted. But she pulled the original deed, the one Grandpa filed 5 years ago. Then she said, "Nina, your name is on the title. You're listed as co-holder, full sign-off rights." I didn't speak. Then I said, "Send me a copy. Don't tell anyone we talked." That night, I opened Brianna's page. There it was, a photo of her and Trent standing on the lakeside property, survey flags in the dirt, champagne in their hands. The caption said, "Future vacation home. Ours at last." I saved the photo, didn't like it, didn't comment, just saved it to a folder I called Timing, because the land they were standing on still had my name on it, and they had no idea. I was 8 the first time someone used the word ungrateful. I had refused to hug my cousin Brianna after she screamed at me for touching her new crayons. She was 6. I was bleeding from a scratch on my cheek. My mother pulled me aside and whispered, "She's younger. Be the bigger person." Then louder, for everyone to hear. "I don't know what's gotten into Nina lately. She's become so cold." That word stuck, not the insult from Brianna, not the scratch, just the word, cold. Growing up, I played a role in a family I didn't audition for. The helper, the listener, the invisible one. While Brianna danced in the center of the room, I set the chairs. While Trent threw tantrums over board games, I packed them back into the box. At holidays, they'd call me quiet, but it never sounded like a compliment, just a placeholder for something worse they didn't want to say out loud. I watched them rehearse the same script every year. Brianna was the golden girl, stylish, sociable, made for pictures. Trent was the entrepreneur, despite every business ending in debt. Aunt Susan was the glue, or that's what she called herself. And my mother, she played both sides, affection in public, dismissal in private. I knew the script. I just stopped reading from it. By college, I had learned to keep my distance. I only came home when I had to, showed up for weddings, left before the cleanup. They called that drifting. Said I had changed, said I was too sensitive now. But sensitivity wasn't the problem. Silence was. They had grown used to the version of me that didn't push back. The last time we all gathered in one room was Grandpa's memorial. Brianna was wearing white. Trent kept checking Zillow under the table. Susan gave a speech about family unity and quoted scripture she didn't believe in. And me? I sat in the back row, holding a folded letter Grandpa left for me. My name in his handwriting. No greeting, no farewell, just this. "You were always enough. Don't let them tell the story without you." That was it. I didn't tell anyone about the letter, not even Melanie, not even my mother, because I already knew what they'd say. How convenient. "Are you sure that was meant for you?" You know, Grandpa wasn't always clear near the end. Brianna started planning a family vision retreat not long after the funeral, a weekend at the lake property. Trent suggested they start renovations early, maybe turn the old house into an Airbnb. My mother told me about it over the phone, like she was letting me in on a secret. "They just want to honor Grandpa's memory, Nina. It's not about money." Then she added, almost as an afterthought, "I told them you'd probably be too busy anyway." I said nothing, because I wasn't too busy. I just wasn't invited. The land itself wasn't remarkable. 2 acres, one small structure, a dock that hadn't seen a boat in 20 years. No plumbing worth saving. But it was where Grandpa went to breathe. He didn't take many people there, but once, when I was 19, and halfway through a panic attack, he handed me the keys and said, "Go where no one expects you. That's where you'll feel most like yourself." I sat on that broken dock for 6 hours, didn't cry, didn't speak, just existed, uninterrupted. That place saved something in me. So when I saw Brianna post a sketch of her future lake house online, I felt something cold press against the back of my teeth. Not rage, not grief, just the old instinct to disappear again. But this time, I didn't. This time, I opened my folder, labeled timing. I reviewed every document Melanie sent, deed language, holding structure, title vesting. And then I saw it. Joint signatory authority required for transfer, unless one party is deceased. Grandpa wasn't careless. He didn't leave it to me. He tied me to it, so they couldn't sell without my signature, which meant the retreat Brianna planned, the renovation Trent pitched, the deal Susan tried to push through. All of it was fantasy, until I said otherwise. The next day, I sent Melanie a quiet reply. "Don't block the sale, just delay. Let them plan. Let them spend." She responded with one word, "Copy." Then we waited. It started with Trent. He sent a group email titled, Grandpa's Legacy, Vision and Investment. I wasn't CC'd. Melanie forwarded it to me, quietly. It was a 6-slide PDF, poorly formatted, overconfident tone. He called it a joint cousin development project. Slide 2 showed a mock-up of 3 cabins, one for each of them. Slide 4 detailed renovation phases. Slide 5 was a financial breakdown of expected investor returns. And Slide 6, that one stung. Ownership status, uncontested family property, clean title, no known disputes, no mention of me. They had rewritten the story, edited me out. 2 days later, I got a text from my mother. Not a call, a text. Don't be alarmed if Susan calls. She's just finalizing things with the county. No explanation, no context, just the assumption I would stay quiet, like I always had. That same week, Melanie called. Her tone was low, careful. They hired another firm. Pushed to close the land within 30 days. Cash buyer lined up, developer out of state. She paused. They're trying to skip the review clause. Said you already agreed. I hadn't, and they knew that. I scrolled through Brianna's feed again. A new caption. Grateful for everything we've been given. Time to build something that lasts. She posted it from the dock. The same dock where Grandpa taught me how to skip stones. Where I sat the day he died. Where she had never once stepped foot, until now. She had already assigned it to herself. Like it was always hers. Like I never mattered. I didn't answer Melanie right away. Just sat on the floor of my apartment, holding the old key Grandpa gave me. Still rusted. Still taped to a note that said, only if you need to. I had always thought that meant emergency, heartbreak, grief. Now I realized what he meant. Not if you need comfort. If you need leverage. I texted Melanie back that night. Let it go through, but change the timing. Push escrow back 2 weeks, long enough for me to visit. She replied within a minute. You want to show up? Not yet, I wrote. Just want to watch them dig their hole first. The following Monday, Aunt Susan scheduled a land blessing. Brianna called it an intimate ceremonial handoff. Trent hired a drone photographer. They each invited friends, not family. Except my mother. She went. And when she came back, she didn't call, but she did send a photo. It was just a picture of the dirt. Flattened, marked, taped off, no caption. But I knew what it meant. She was telling me, it's already done. Don't bother. I opened my copy of the deed. Scrolled to the clause. Grandpa had added in his own words, in the event of any property sale, both signatories must appear in person or submit formal notarized consent. This includes transfer, development, or reassignment of title. They hadn't read that far, or they had, and assumed I wouldn't notice. Same mistake they always made. Confusing silence with absence. Melanie called again. The buyer's legal is starting to notice gaps. Want to move up the closing date. They're nervous. I told her to stall 1 more week, then asked if she could send me a clean copy of the sale documents they filed. She hesitated. You're going to show up, aren't you? I didn't answer, didn't need to. She sent the file. The final page had a signature block. It was already filled out. A forged version of my name. Slightly off, middle initial wrong. Loop in the W reversed. They hadn't even gotten it right. And still, they thought I'd never notice. That night, I took the mug from the cupboard. The blank one Brianna gave me. Sat at the table with the file open and stared at the forged name across from mine. Then I took a Sharpie, wrote something across the mug in all caps. You need my name. Then I flipped the light off. Let the silence settle. Let the cold build. Because they were almost finished. and they still had no idea what was missing. It was raining the morning the sale was supposed to go through. Not a storm, just enough to keep the roads quiet. Melanie called at 9:42 a.m., said the buyer's legal rep was already at the title office, said Susan showed up in a white blazer. Trent was live streaming in the parking lot. No one asked where I was. No one wondered why I wasn't there. They had already signed on my behalf. They believed in momentum, that if they moved fast enough, I wouldn't catch up, that if they smiled hard enough, no one would question them. It worked for years. But real signatures don't bend under pressure, and real titles don't forget names. By 10:15, they were all seated. Melanie told me later that Brianna brought a branded binder, color-coded, indexed, with a cover that read, Wells Family Legacy, Phase 1. She'd designed a family crest for the project, gold leaves, a fake Latin motto, the year 2023, like the past meant nothing. At 10:28, the lawyer handed them the final draft, asked for last-minute confirmations. Everyone nodded. Susan signed. Trent signed. Then the room went still, because the lawyer pointed to one line. Asked the question they weren't expecting. Where is Nina Wells? Susan laughed, said I was traveling, said she had power of attorney. The lawyer raised an eyebrow. There's no record of that in the file. Then Melanie cleared her throat from the other side of the room. She'd come in quietly, no announcement, just walked in, calm as paper, opened her own folder, pulled out one page. It was the original deed. My name, printed, my signature, real. She handed it to the lawyer and said, This version has legal precedence. You'll need her consent. Trent said it was a mistake. Brianna said I was lying. Susan said Grandpa was confused in his last year. Then the door opened again, and I walked in. I wasn't dressed for drama. Black coat, hair tied back, flat shoes, no makeup, just presence, the kind they never expected. Because presence had never been my weapon. Until now, Susan's face folded in on itself. Trent looked away. Brianna said my name like it was something she'd just bitten into by accident. Nina, I didn't answer her. I didn't look at any of them. I looked at the lawyer, held up the real title file. You're missing one thing. My signature. Then I dropped it on the table. It made a sound louder than any of them expected. I sat down, slow, measured, looked at Melanie. Go ahead. Tell them what they missed. She nodded once. The sale is invalid. The title's incomplete. There's no legal transfer without Nina's consent. Then she looked directly at Susan. You attempted to move forward based on falsified consent. That's forgery. That's criminal. Silence. Real silence this time. Not polite, not controlled, just vacant. Brianna was the first to speak. We didn't mean to exclude you. We just thought. I cut her off. You thought I wouldn't notice. She paused, swallowed. It's just land, Nina. I looked at her. Then why did you try to steal it? Trent pushed his chair back. This is getting personal. We're family. I turned to him. You're not my family when I'm only invited to sign forms, not sit at the table. Susan stood, like she was about to deliver some grand defense. But I was already done. This property doesn't move, not without me. And right now, I'm not moving. I gathered the file, looked at the lawyer again. They can submit a new proposal if they want to try again properly. Then I stood up. Before I left, I turned back. You tagged me in a Christmas post. Said you weren't really missing me. I paused. Turns out you were. No one posted anything that day. No reels. No photos. No hashtags. The drone footage never made it online. Because what was meant to be a closing celebration turned into a legal freeze. A stall. a question they hadn't planned for. Me. That evening, I got a text from my mother. Did you really have to embarrass them? No greeting, no question about how I was, just that. Embarrassment. That's what she felt. Not shame, not regret, just exposure. I didn't reply. I opened my freezer, took out a single cube of ice, and dropped it into a glass. It cracked. The sound was enough. The next day, Susan called Melanie, left a long voicemail about miscommunication and family intentions, asked if there was any room to fix things before the lawyers got involved. Melanie forwarded it to me, then sent one line, "Want to call them yourself?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked at the binder they'd left behind. Brianna's legacy folder. I flipped to the page with the fake crest. Under it, in gold foil, were the words, "Built on tradition." I ran my finger over it. Then I opened a blank envelope, slipped the crest page inside, addressed it to Brianna. No note, just the image. I mailed it that afternoon. 3 days later, they tried again. Trent emailed me directly. Subject line, "Let's talk." He asked if we could have a grown-up conversation. Said he was willing to offer me a portion of the profits if I'd just make things easier. Portion of land that bore my name. He attached a payment estimate, a few $1,000s, not even a tenth of what the property was worth. I read it twice, closed the tab, then forwarded it to Melanie with a note. "Reply for me. Say, she's not interested in portions. She owns the whole plate." Brianna finally called. No warning. No number saved. Just a voice I hadn't heard in a year. "Hey, Nina, can we talk?" I let the silence answer her, but she kept going. "I didn't know the signature was fake. I thought you'd agreed, and—" "Stop." My voice came out flatter than I expected. "This isn't a miscommunication. You were counting on my absence, not my approval." She went quiet, then softer. "It wasn't personal." I let that sit for a moment. "Then why did you take it so personally when I said no?" She exhaled. "I just thought maybe this would bring the family closer." "You mean without me?" No response. Then, faintly, "We didn't think you'd want to be involved, because you never invited me." Another pause. Then she said the one thing that showed her hand. "Grandpa would have wanted this for all of us." I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. "He did. That's why he left it to me." I hung up. After that, the emails stopped. The texts slowed. Even my mother went silent for a week. Then Melanie sent me a message. "They've pulled the buyer offer. Said they're rethinking the family structure." I asked if they'd submitted any updates to the title. She said no. "It's just sitting now, quiet." I stared at my screen for a while, then typed one line back. "Let them sit." Because silence, real silence, was the one thing they couldn't stand. Melanie called late. She usually texts, so when I saw her name light up at 10:11 p.m., I knew something had shifted. Her voice was quiet, clipped. "They submitted a private proposal this afternoon. Not to the county, to the buyer." I said nothing. Let her keep going. "They rewrote the contract, took your name off, claimed the deed transfer is pending your signature, but a family resolution is expected soon." I let that sink in. Not forged this time. Just a lie, dressed in delay. I asked if she had the document. She sent it before I finished the sentence. It was short, 3 pages, no more crest, no legacy branding. Just numbers, a lowball figure that gave the buyer more than the land was worth, and offered each of them a cut. But one paragraph stood out. "In the unlikely event of interference from the deceased's estranged granddaughter, family consensus and legal momentum are expected to override hesitation. Estranged. That was their word for me now. Not excluded, not forgotten, just removed. They didn't know I'd see the document, but Melanie had access, and I had patience. I stared at the screen a long time, reread the phrase, interference from the deceased's estranged granddaughter, a sentence they thought would vanish behind legal paper. I forwarded it to myself, printed it out, folded it cleanly. Then I wrote 3 words across the margin in red ink. This was personal. I didn't call them, didn't send a message. I just waited. Because soon they'd realize something important. I wasn't estranged. I was central. The next day, Melanie and I met at the old property. She had the keys. I brought a thermos and gloves. The grass had grown high. No renovations, no signs of construction, just stillness. We walked down to the dock. It was more weathered than I remembered. The nails loose, the wood soft, but it held. She sat beside me, unscrewed the thermos. You really going to let them stew in it? I nodded. Let them taste the future they thought they could plan without me. We didn't talk much after that. Just sat with the lake, the cold, the kind of silence I used to be afraid of. But this wasn't the silence of exclusion. This was ownership. When I got home that night, my mother had left a voicemail. Her voice was shaky, but not broken. I didn't know they'd go this far. I thought they just wanted to honor your grandfather. Please, if there's a way to fix this. I deleted it before she finished. Not out of anger, out of clarity. Because this wasn't about fixing. It was about remembering who erased me and who benefited. The next day, I sent Melanie one message. They want to talk? Fine. One condition. She wrote back, name it. We meet at the property. No emails, no paper, just them, just me. She gave them the offer. They accepted. They came in separate cars. First Trent, then Brianna, then Susan. None of them spoke when they stepped out. They didn't hug, didn't smile, just looked around like they expected someone else to be in charge. But there was no event, no lawyer, no paperwork, only me and the land, exactly as Grandpa left it. I stood by the dock, hands in my coat pockets. Susan approached first. Nina, I'm glad we're doing this in person. I didn't respond. She adjusted the collar of her jacket, looked around like she was checking for a camera crew. We just want to have an honest conversation. As a family, I turned toward her, finally. You already had your conversation, in my absence, with my name on your papers. Her jaw tightened. It wasn't meant to be hostile. We were trying to keep things simple. Simple for who? Trent stepped forward, arms crossed. Look, this whole thing has gone way off track. We thought you weren't interested. We thought you'd moved on. And when you weren't sure, you forged a signature, or just hoped I wouldn't notice. He said nothing, but his silence said everything. Brianna stayed back. When I looked at her, she looked down. Like the dock planks held better answers. I mailed something to you, I said. She nodded. I got it. What did you do with it? I burned it. Good, I said. It wasn't real anyway. Susan tried to steer the conversation back. We're willing to bring you into the deal. Equal split. Retroactively. We'll draw up new terms. You already had terms. I pulled out the folded paper. The offer I wasn't supposed to see. The one that called me estranged. The one that hoped legal momentum would erase consent. I dropped it at Susan's feet. You called me a threat, then tried to sell what I owned. The lake was quiet behind us. Even the wind paused. Then I asked the question, when exactly did you decide I didn't matter? None of them answered, so I gave them the answer. It wasn't Christmas, or the birthday you forgot, or the funeral seat you left empty. It was long before that I stepped forward. It was when I made it easy for you to ignore me, and you mistook that for permission." Trent laughed once under his breath. "So what now? You keep the land? Just to spite us?" I looked past him, toward the hill. The house was still there, boarded up, unloved, but it was still standing. "I keep it because it's mine, and because Grandpa trusted me to know what to do with it." Susan tried again. "Nina, please, you're punishing the whole family for a misunderstanding." "I'm correcting it." Brianna finally spoke. "He used to say you were the quiet one, the soft one." I nodded. "And he used to say, 'Loud doesn't mean right.'" I turned to go, but before I stepped off the dock, I looked back. "You called me ungrateful. You planned around me. You sold my name before you asked for it." "I'm not punishing you," I said. "I'm just not saving you." They didn't follow me, didn't shout, didn't protest. They just stood there, on land they thought was theirs, watching the only person who could unlock it walk away. The dock meeting was 3 weeks ago. They haven't contacted me since. No calls, no threats, not even silence pretending to be peace. Just absence. But I know what they're doing. They're regrouping, looking for another angle, one that doesn't need me. They'll come back around. They always do, when they're hungry. Melanie called again. She had something for me. Found a draft they never sent you. A letter of notice, meant to satisfy the title clause. I raised an eyebrow. Postmarked. Number never mailed, just saved. Like they thought it'd be enough if they needed to prove it later. I met her the next day. She handed me the envelope. My name was spelled wrong. Inside was the draft. 3 lines. "Dear Nina, we are moving forward with the sale of the lakeside property. Your signature is requested, but not required for the transfer to complete. Thank you for understanding." That was it. No signature, no return address. Just the arrogance of assumption. I folded the paper once, slipped it into a plastic sleeve, labeled it evidence. Because that's what it was now, not a letter, a confession. I'd already started the process, right after the dock. No revenge, no legal action, just prevention. I filed a formal block on the parcel, updated the county with the correct ownership terms, attached Grandpa's signed clause with a certified copy. Melanie submitted it on my behalf. 2 days later, she sent me a note. Confirmed, full title security, no movement possible without you. And then they tried again. Same buyer, same bluff, different wording. Rejected instantly. I stared at that word, rejected. Not because I needed them punished, but because I needed them stopped. They haven't reached out since. I'm sure they're waiting for the next holiday, another excuse to act like nothing happened. Another photo to post without me. I'm fine with that. Because I've started something of my own. The land isn't for sale, but I've opened it. Not to developers, not to investors, to preservation. I contacted a local trust, an ecological foundation that Grandpa once donated to quietly. They remembered him. They remembered me. We walked the property together last week. The director stopped by the dock, ran her hand along the railing. He was right to protect this. I nodded. That's why I'm keeping it. Not just from outsiders, from insiders too. She offered a deal. The land stays in my name, but gets protective status. No one can build on it. Not without a full environmental review. Not without community consent. I signed, not out of pettiness, out of protection. Later that night, I lit a single candle in my apartment. No reason, just instinct. And I sat with the sound of my own breathing. The kind of silence that holds meaning, not punishment, closure. They posted the photo anyway. New matching sweaters, over-decorated tree. Brianna, holding a mug labeled CEO of Christmas. Caption: Family is everything, missing a few, but not really. The same tone, the same smile, the same dig wrapped in warmth. But this time, no one laughed. Because people remembered, someone must have talked, a cousin, a neighbor, or maybe one of them, under the weight of their own silence. But by New Year's, the messages started rolling in. Old classmates, distant relatives, people who never said anything when it mattered. Is it true they tried to sell your inheritance without you? I always wondered why they acted like you didn't exist. You handled it better than I would have. I didn't reply to any of them. I didn't need their guilt or their applause. I had the title, I had the deed, and I had the truth. The biggest surprise came from a man named Grant, Grandpa's old friend. I remembered him vaguely. Tall, quiet, always brought cherry cordials to Christmas. He sent a handwritten letter, said he read about the land in a local paper, said Grandpa had once told him that only Nina understands what this place means. And then he included something I didn't expect, a copy of a letter Grandpa wrote but never mailed. It was addressed to me. The ink was fading, but the words were still steady. If they ever try to push you out, you don't owe them grace. You owe them memory. Make them remember who built this, who protected it, and who trusted you to do the same. It wasn't love. It wasn't apology. It was recognition. I read it twice, then folded it back into the envelope. It didn't change anything, but it reminded me why I never folded. By January, the social media posts stopped. The buyer backed out completely. The town started a buzz about the new land trust deal. Brianna posted less. Trent locked his profile. Susan removed Legacy Advisor from her LinkedIn bio. But the most satisfying detail was quiet. A message Melanie sent with no commentary. A screenshot. Brianna had listed her company's upcoming lakefront development as on hold indefinitely. No explanation, just paused, because the foundation had published the terms of our conservation deal. And suddenly, the land was off limits. Public knowledge now, not just mine. They tried to tag me in another group post weeks later, a subtle one. No faces, just candles. Caption: Healing takes time. I wasn't tagged, but I was still there. In the comments, in the silence, in the absence that now held weight. A letter came in February, not from them, from a mediator. Some lawyer they hired through a firm 2 counties over. Tone was polite. Language careful. On behalf of the Maddox family, we respectfully request a reconsideration of the estate ownership, with the intent to re-enter discussions regarding a shared outcome. I read it twice, didn't feel anything. Not anger, not hurt, not even surprise. Just the familiar cadence of a family too used to taking, asking for compromise once the damage is done. They didn't ask me directly, not this time. No, hey Nina, no phone calls, no guilt texts about what Grandpa would have wanted. Just a legal handoff, like that would make it cleaner. Like they still believed my silence was softness. I sent one reply. Didn't use my lawyer, didn't write a speech, just 1 page, typed in bold, left aligned. Ownership is not an opinion. It's recorded. It's recognized. It's done. And at the bottom, consent cannot be backdated. Neither can family, no sign-off, no closing line. Just the words they avoided all year. No, I never heard back from the mediator. They got the message. Melanie confirmed they let the offer lapse. No appeals, no follow-up. The final gate closed without a sound. Spring came early this year. The dock got new nails. The path got cleared. The house is still empty. But the porch light works again. Sometimes I go there just to sit. No music, no guests, no announcements. Just the quiet, the trees, and the cold ripple of water under a dock they never respected. Last week, I stood under the old pine tree near the gate. Carved into the bark was a faint set of initials, mine and Grandpa's. We'd etched them there one summer when I was 8. I remember how he smiled and said, "That's our proof. This land knows you." They never knew about it. They wouldn't have looked hard enough to see it. I ran my fingers over the carving. The edges were softer now, like the tree had started healing around it. That felt right. Healing doesn't mean inviting them back. It just means I'm not carrying the weight of their choices anymore. They built a legacy without me. Now they get to live without the land. And I get to stay quiet, on property that answers to my name, forever unsigned and completely mine.